Now, dozens of child psychologists and psychiatrists have signed a letter calling for mental health education to be made compulsory. Writing in the Times, they say educating young people would increase coping skills and increase early diagnosis of mental health issues.
Well, joining us from South London is one of the signatories of that letter, Dr. Lauren Callaghan. And in the studio with us, we're joined by Hope Virgo. Now, she's a campaigner and author who suffered from anorexia for more than 4 years. And Hope, before we start talking about this letter and indeed what psychologists are calling for, it'd be great to hear a bit more about your story and what you went through. Now, you started dealing with anorexia at such a young age, from the age of 12 years old.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So when I was about 12, I started to not eat. I was really struggling with feeling different emotions. I had come from quite a messy family life, and I also got sexually abused. And because I didn't know how to deal with it, by not eating, it helped me actually just kind of push those emotions down and bottle it up. So I was like that till I was about 16, and then I ended up actually going to hospital when I was 17 because my heart nearly stopped because I got so unwell. So there wasn't anyone I could really talk to for those 4 years, I think, and I think people didn't understand mental health and people didn't understand what anorexia was at that point.
And it seems like right now there's a massive drive to try and find out what's going on with young people. A lot of research right now where children as young as 4 are seeking help with mental health issues. So do you think then that this call for education for mental health issues be part of how young people are educated? Will that make a difference from your point of view? Would it have made a difference for you when you were as young as 10, 11?
Yes, I think 100% it will. I think we need to have mental health education in schools simply to empower young people to actually talk about it. I know when I was in hospital there was a girl who was 12 years old who had been admitted with anorexia, so she must have struggled with it for kind of 4 years before that. And actually by having mental health taught in schools, it will help young people to know that they can talk about it. I think nowadays people have so much kind of pressure from social media to live this perfect lifestyle, but that's not kind of the real world. And we need to make sure that young people can kind of understand that it's okay to not feel fine all the time.
Let's bring in Dr. Callaghan. Good to see you. It's a heartbreaking story, the one that Hope just explains to us, and it'll be echoed up and down the country, I'm sure. Pretty staggering figure. 1 in 5 children will suffer from mental health before the age of 11. What exactly are you and the other signatories calling for? Are you talking about classroom-based learning, or will it be something else?
Well, it could be classroom-based. What we're saying is there's such a problem with mental health problems in adolescents and in young people that we need to somehow teach people how to have positive mental health, to increase their resilience, and also educate them on some of the more serious mental health conditions such as anorexia and depression. And the way to do that is to get them en masse. Where do we do that? We do that in schools. So schools are a perfect forum for us to start educating young people and even their families about positive mental health. It could be done in classroom format. That would be ideal. It could be done collapse forms. We could bring specialists in. There are many ways this could be done. We can be flexible in the delivery of it. What is most important is that we do it.
The Prime Minister in January spoke about mental health involving young children was a hidden injustice in society. Perhaps you'd welcome a comment such as that. Do you think the political will is there enough to tackle this issue of mental health amongst our young?
I do. I think it's been gaining a lot of media attention because the rates are very alarming. 1 in 10 young people has a diagnosable mental health condition. That's actually a diagnostic, clinical problem. 1 in 5 is experiencing poor mental health. It's a tragedy and something that needs to be done to address it. So I think the media and politicians are aware of it, and hopefully this is going to start taking steps towards, introducing some measures to help young people.
If I can bring Hope back in here. I mean, earlier you mentioned social media and the pressures young people face. Now, when you were dealing with your issue of anorexia, social media really, as it is now, wasn't really like that. And you wouldn't have Instagram, you wouldn't have had Snapchat.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to young people, and how do you think you would have coped if all of that added pressure was around?
I think it would have been much harder. I've been going to schools a lot actually to talk about my experience and actually talk to young people about kind of social media and the pressures they face from that. And for me, something that I do is I'm really mindful actually when I'm looking at social media, particularly when looking at anorexia hashtags and things like that. kind of making myself aware that actually what you see on social media isn't reality, and people paint this perfect life, but actually they don't have that perfect life, like no one does. And I think by doing kind of getting young people to talk about mental health, it will help get people to talking and actually realise that it isn't like that all the time.
So what would your advice also be to parents dealing with young people? Because a lot of parents don't use social media, at least not in the same way that young people do. So what advice do you give to them, not just over social media as well, just anything concerning the welfare and the mindfulness of young people and their kids?
Yeah, so I probably encourage them to talk to their children, actually. So I know that can be really difficult, but particularly if you've got difficult relationships, or I know when I grew up I had a difficult relationship with my mum because I was an adolescent girl and quite moody, but actually being able to talk to young people
at that age.
yeah, that's true.
but
yeah, talking about things is important, and I think as well encouraging your children to live that healthy lifestyle. And at the moment the Sure Mind Foundation have obviously got this petition going out, and actually everyone can play their part in getting mental health education compulsory. All you've got to do is sign this petition, and I think through that it will help young people then feel empowered to then talk to their parents about how they're feeling.
Dr. Callaghan, just very briefly, how does mental health manifest itself in a young person as they grow up and they move into adult life if it isn't addressed at a young age?
There's good evidence to show that up to 75% of adults have had a mental health problem that wasn't diagnosed in adolescence. And there are significant costs, not only to the individual and their families, in terms of kind of suffering, emotional distress and inability to access kind of life, but also there's a huge cost to our economy, not only kind of in the lost potential of these people, but also in treating mental health conditions as they become more severe and more chronic. So we also know, for example, bullying in high school has a really significant effect on mental health, even in adult years. So there are a lot of things that can be done to address these problems in adolescents and in young children that will hopefully be protective for when they become adults.
Okay, Dr. Lauren Callaghan, many thanks indeed for sharing your thoughts, and Hope Virgo, many thanks indeed for sharing your experience with us.
I hope you're really well now, really. Thank you so much.
Coming up on